What's going on, guys? Welcome to Pam Unfiltered, the spot where we spill the hottest celeb tea, break down and review all the reality TV chaos, get real about the latest trending news, and of course, so much more. So let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here on Pam Unfiltered. This is season 10, episode 2, A Love is Blind. So this episode picks up the next day after what happened in the ending of last episode when Alyssa was rushed to the ER. Everybody at this point doesn't know what happened. So she comes into the quarters, she sits with the girls, and she tells them, like, yesterday, I went to the back, I went to put some eye drops in my eyes, and I quickly realized it was nail glue. When I tell you these girls were sitting there all dramatic, like they was listening to a telenovela, and they was just like, and I'm like, it's not that serious. And it actually is pretty common for stupid things to happen. Normally don't happen in adults, it'll happen in children. But again, it's not an uncommon thing to happen. You can see that her eyes intact. She ain't got no eye patch. She ain't got no redness to her eyes. The girl is fine. All those dramatics were just really unnecessary. So then we cut to Vic and Christina, our first engaged couple, meeting. But right before they meet, Christina is like, when two people who love each other, you cannot stop them. I know Vic and I know Vic knows me. Then it cuts to Vic, and Vic is just like, he's so excited to see Christine, and how much he loves her, and he can't believe that two people fell in love with each other sight unseen. And I'm just like, it's not uncommon. When the internet first started, a lot of like social like websites came about. There was no video back then. It was just typing. So a lot of people connected emotionally. So no, it's not uncommon, right? So then the doors open and these two are loving what they're seeing. He's like, oh my God, you're so gorgeous. She's like, you're so handsome. She's grabbing his face. They kiss him. And I'm just like, oh, this is so sweet. Like, I really, really like this couple. So then he gets on one knee. He's like, Christine, will you marry me? She's like, yes. They kiss some more. They go into the section where she was, and they're just like kind of like off in the corner. And they're just being so lovey-dovey and kissing. And he's like, you're just so beautiful. And they just seem really happy to separate. And, that's the end of that meeting. But then we go back to Miss Emma. And it kind of continues on to what we previously saw with her when she was talking to Tyler, Kia, Dynasty, and I think there were some other girls there as well. And, she's really hurt at the fact that Steven wasn't empathetic to her story. And I don't think Steven wasn't empathetic to her story. I don't believe so too. I just think there was just a lot of things about him that was just really, really icky. And I think because she was long-winded, well, maybe, yeah, he wasn't empathetic to her story. Yeah, he probably wasn't empathetic to her story. He's just a jerk overall. But I think her main concern was, what if Mike and Connor did the same thing that he did? And I'm like, these are three different men. These are three different people. You can't assume that. You gotta go off the ledge, honey. You want people to go deep, you gotta go deep as well. So then it cuts to her and Mike on a date, and she asks him, like, what about her stands out? And, he's like, I really love your humor. And he feels like they have a lot of things in common. And he knows for sure that she is his number one. But the only thing that's holding him back is the fact that she's not sure she wants kids. And I know she's like, oh my God, this conversation again, but Emma, people are on this experiment, including yourself, looking for a partner. And when someone is looking for a partner and they want to live their life with their partner, kids come with it. People want to have children. You either going to tell him, listen, I don't want to have this conversation again. I do not want kids. If this is a deal breaker for you, then maybe you need to find someone else. You need to put your foot down, because if you don't, the conversation's going to keep coming up. So this is when Emma decides to finally open up, and she tells Mike about her being adopted. Now, she doesn't tell him where, because she doesn't want him to know what she is racially and ethnically. But she does say that, I was left at a train at 3 years old. I was adopted. And then she goes into saying that, she had a lot of birthmarks all over her. And it was to be found out that they were high risk of being melanoma. So before the age of, I think, like 8 or 9 or something like that. She had about 10 surgeries to remove them, and some of those surgeries required scarring. So she has a lot of scarring on her left arm. He reassures her and tells her, I would never judge you on something like that with your physical appearance. And he's like, I know you're a good woman. And again, he brings up the whole kid situation, what I think is a little bit pushy. And again, she needs to put her foot down. But because he was so receptive of her story, you can tell like there was like a weight lifted off on her, and she just became a little bit more open. So then he goes in and he tells his story about when he was when he was a baby. He was born a preemie, but when he was born, he would stop breathing. And he said that, obviously he overcame it. He's an adult, he's grown. He says grandmother called him what she called him? Her little fighter. That's what she calls Mike. But then it cuts to her and Connor in their pod date, and she's opening up to Connor the same way as Mike. Maybe even better than Mike. I feel like she's a lot more open with Connor than Mike, because I think she likes Connor a lot more. And she finally expresses why she doesn't want children. So when she was younger, she said during the times of her surgery and stuff like that, and I'm assuming after that in high school, she was made fun of. Kids were picking on her because of her scars, and they probably were picking on her because she's Chinese and the fact that she's adopted. She probably didn't have a lot of POC people around her. Because normally, when you see, I don't know, maybe that's just me and what I experienced when I was in college. When I was in college, there wasn't a lot of people of color, and a lot of us just went, we were Black, we were Latin, we were Asian, we were Middle Eastern, and we just went, and we kind of all collectively came together, and we kind of like formed a group. You had your, a couple of white people, like, kind of like urban and stuff, and they came with us, but for the most part, we were all kind of together. And I think maybe if she had that in her school, in her time, maybe she would have been a little bit more confident, you know what I mean, in who she is as a person. But you are 27 years old. It's time for you to take the reins, and I need you to learn who you are as a Chinese woman culturally, because this is getting out of hand. You too old for this. You're an adult. You can go out there and figure out what you are ethnically as an Asian woman. This is just ridiculous to me. But as she's opening up to him, he is receptive to her story. And he's like, I'm so happy that you told me your story. He's like, this is a new chapter for us, and I think we can really like move on. And she is just so elated and she's so happy. And she kind of tells him like, Connor, I think you're my number one. And like, she's just really, really happy. So then we get Jordan, aka Big Daddy, and Amber, and he's sitting in the pod, not in the pods, he's sitting in the quarters with the men, and he's talking about Amber, and he's talking about right before he was chosen for the show, that they asked him like, what are your deal breakers? And he was like, a woman having a child. But since he's met Amber, that's gone completely out the window. And then her previous relationship, the guy that she was dating, she said she dated him for 3 years and he ain't never met her daughter. Now, some people are like, that don't sound right. And I'm like, no, she knew probably that she wasn't ready for him to meet his daughter. It was something probably about him that she thought that wasn't going to be good for her daughter, so she kept them apart. That's just it. So then we get them in their date, and I'm gonna just read in my notes. And then Amber goes, she says, I love my job. I love taking care of my daughter, but it would be really nice to come home to somebody, right? And then she talks about what they have in common. And she says, I know in our past, like, we had our financial F-ups. And I'm just like, I hope y'all learn from them F-ups, because two people financially not responsible is not a good thing. Is not a good thing. So then they go into, or I should say, he goes in and he asks her what is her type. And I think he was kind of fishing because, listen, Big Daddy is a little, he's a big dude. I don't think he's too big. Honestly, I think he's like 230. I don't think he's really a bigger guy. but he's fishing to see what um his what her type is. And she's like, oh, my type is, pretty open, and they're very, very different. And then she flips it on him. She's like, what is your type? Do you like blondes? Do you like redheads? Do you like brunettes? And he's like, well, I never really experienced too many redheads. And then she lets him know that she actually is a strawberry blonde and that her hair currently is lighter. But I'm looking at her and I'm like, maybe she should go back to her natural hair color. And the way the thickness of her hair, it looks like she has curly hair. So maybe she looks better in her natural state than that color she got. The color that her hair is like her roots are dark, and then it's like very different like colors of blonde, but then the blonde looks white and then it looks yellow. It's just very odd. I think her natural hair color probably makes her face a lot more brighter, but that's just me. So then after that, she goes into a story when she was a kid. She's like, oh, when I was younger in high school, I was really skinny, I was really dorky. And then she reminisces about a time where a boy just like set her up to be laughed at. And she said she was hurt, but she said she would never show anybody that during that time, even as an adult. She said she wanted to curse him out so bad, but she didn't. She gave him a big, like, you. And then he goes into a story about when he was younger, how a teacher called him stupid. And he said, like, it really hurt him. But he said he proved her wrong when he graduated from college. And I said, you know what? Good for you. But what kind of teacher calls a student stupid? Like, as a teacher, you know that everybody learns differently. So he doesn't learn like a group of the other people. You don't call him stupid because of that. You try to figure out a better way that he can learn. So I just thought that was really messed up. My man, my man, my man, my man, my baby. All right, so now we get Tyler in the quarters, and she's joking. She's sitting around, with the girls, and she's like, who's talking to my man? Who's talking to my man? Because if you're talking to my man, you his number two. And Kia's over there in the corner somewhere just being silent. She not saying a word. But then we get Tyler and we get Kevan on their date. And, she's like asking him, like, how do you feel about us? And, he says that he's all in with them, but he feels guilty if they take it to the next level and they actually get married, that he is taking her away from the city that she lives in and her job, because I think he lives in Cleveland and she lives in Cincinnati. And she's just a little confused on the conversation because previous conversations that they've had, and this has been brought up, she said it doesn't matter because if she's married and she's in love, she's going with her man. So she's like, well, then are you willing to meet in the middle if you feel this guilty? And he says, yes. And she's like, okay, that's fine. So then they go into, a little bit of a deeper talk, and they talk about family. And then she's like, okay, so, what if we can't have kids? Or he says to her, like, what if we can't have children? And she said, she'll be hurt. You know what I mean? And she will cry. But she says a saying that she always lives by is, you cry and then you build a bridge to go over. And he's like, okay. But then she goes, what if your child is gay? And then he says, I'll be, receptive to it. That's my child. I'm going to love my child. Even though I have visions of what my child will be, I guess, as an adult, it doesn't matter if they're gay or not. And I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know how people say they have these envisions. Maybe because I'm not a parent, but it's just like, like, envision of what? Like, it's just so weird. Like, to me, I don't know. If I have a kid, I want my kid to just be morally respectful to people and treat people right. I don't give a damn if they're gay. I do not care. How are you treating people in this world? I don't care if my kid wants to be a doctor. I don't care if my kid wants to be a trash man. I don't care if he likes men. I just don't care. It's how you lead your life. And people are like, sometimes people say, oh, I envision my kid's life. When they say that, they mean with the opposite sex and children. And this is 2026, baby. Gay people are having kids all the time. They're getting married and they're having kids. So I don't know what you mean by the envision part. I'm just saying. So then Kevan goes into a story about when he was a kid. I guess when he was a kid, he got into trouble a lot. And she's like, well, elaborate on it. He said that he used to go to gym class like 4 times a day. And then he had finally got caught and he got suspended. So he went home and he noticed that his mother was sleeping and he knew there was something wrong. So then he called 911 and they found out that she had a rare blood infection. And because of this infection, she had to get her foot amputated. And the doctors told him if he didn't come home early, she would have died. But because she had her foot amputated and he was 18 at the time, he had to step up and really take care, or I should say help, and take out the family. Tyler's like, I really appreciate that you told me, that you opened up and you told me that story. I know you don't like to dwell on, uh, I guess past memories or whatever, something like that. But she's like, I really just appreciate that you told me that. So then we get Kia again in the quarters, and there's just something about like not Kia, I'm sorry, Tyler in the quarters, and again with like being ecstatic about the relationship between her and Kevan, but I feel like she's vocalizing it a little too much because I know she knows that he has another connection with someone else, and I don't know if she's trying to showboat to let the other girl feel a little insecure, and I know she has an inkling that it's Kia, but she continue on to say it, which is unnecessary. So then we get Kevan and Kia in their date. And at this point, Kevan is all in with Tyler, right? And he knows that when he gets to see Kia, that he has to break it off with her. But Kia is excited to see Kevan. So then they get into their date and Kevan asks her, like, what are your thoughts about him? And she's like, with you, what sticks out is that she really enjoys their timeline, right? And he tells her, listen, like, um, he has stronger connections and like he has strong other connections and that he doesn't want to uh hurt anyone's feelings. And then Kia has to explain to him, she's like, listen, this is an experiment. We all signed up for this experiment. We know that we're going to have multiple connections. Just be honest about your feelings, right? So then she makes a dig here, right? And this is where a light bulb, a flag came up to me about Kia. So then she makes a dig to Tyler and Kevan's relationships. And she's like, you don't need to make knee jerk decisions. And I was just like, ooh, ooh, okay, Kia. Mm, I don't know about you, girl. I do not know about you. And again, he expresses that he has stronger connections with other people. So then, hold on, because I'm looking at my things. So then he asks her, he's like, what does love look like to you? And she goes, honesty, fun, growth. And then she talks about an example with her uncle and aunt and how like she asks her aunt about like love or happiness and joy, and she says that her aunt would always get happy when she would hear her husband's keys and him walking through the door. Something that's so rare and something that's so simple that most people wouldn't think about. That's what she loved about the answer with her aunt and her uncle's relationship. So now we get Jordan, aka Big Daddy and Amber, but Jordan is in the quarters and he is making cookies for Amber and the other girls. He said he called up his mother and asked for the recipe and he is in there. Honey, he said he likes to cook. He wants to make sure that Amber knows that he know how to cook, he know how to bake. So he makes these chocolate chip cookies. He sends them over to the girls' quarters. Emma gets them and Amber gets them and Amber is so excited. She looks at Brianna and she's like, go have a cookie. She said, my nan made cookies. And Brianna's like, really? She's like, yes. And she is just so excited. She's jumping for joy. She's like, and she walks towards the pods to go on a date with Big Daddy. So then she goes into the date and she's like, listen, me and the girls love the cookies and I appreciate that you made them. He's like, you are so very welcome. But then he goes in and he lets her know, like, when he first started talking to her and she told him that he had a daughter, that she had a daughter, he was really, really anxious because that was a deal breaker for him. But he says as he continued on a relationship with her in the dates, that he just felt more relaxed and reassured because her daughter has a really good relationship with her father, and that Amber has a really good foundation with her family. And I guess not foundation, but she has a great support system with her family. And him getting to know her daughter is a privilege. And she's like, yes, you don't have to worry about any of that. Like, you're not trying to take over that role. She got a good father, and you're just there to be my husband and be, a bonus to this family, right? So then she goes and she says, I wrote some words about you last night. She drew some pictures. I don't know what that's about. But then he says, I did too. So then he opens up his notebook. He reads the words to her and he says, Amber, will you marry me? I love you. Will you marry me? And she says, absolutely yes. And we got our second couple engaged. So now we get Tyler in the quarters and she's talking to Emma and she's telling Emma how excited she is and how good she feels about her relationship with Kevan. But then she turns over and she sees Kia leaving out the quarters to go, of course, on a date with Kevan. And she says she makes a little comment. She says, oh, I wish I could be nosy and listen to someone's pod date. And I'm like, girl, if you are so 100% with Kevan, that comment just was really unnecessary. And I don't know if you just realized and you thought in your brain that maybe you shouldn't talk so much in the quarters because you don't know what she's using against you. And trust me, she's using shit against you in a smart way. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think she really truly believes that she is like 100% sure. So now we get Kevan and Kia in their date, and she's asking him, has he expressed or told the other men who his connections are? And he was like, no, I keep that close to my chest. And she says the same thing. But he also expressed to her that he really wants to be mindful of other people's feelings. And she says, listen, again, she tells this to him again. And she's like, listen, like, this is an experiment that we signed up for. Like, we all know that we're going to make other connections, multiple connections. Like, I really think you're like overthinking it. And then no, I'm sorry. Then she goes and then she says, would your mother be proud of the conversations and the decisions that you have made so far in this experiment? And he says, absolutely. I think she would be proud of me. And then he goes into the story that he told Tyler about his mom and her rare blood infection. And she's very receptive and she thanks him for the story. And then she goes into her personal story. Her dad, died at 15. Her mother was a drug addict and she was raised by her grandmother. But then she speaks a little bit more on her dad and talks about how her dad loved watches and, for a long, long time that, she searched for the perfect watch and that her father always told pretty much, these are not the words that she used, but it's pretty much the same. Like, time is of the essence. You know what I mean? And timing is perfect. And then then she says she so happens to find the perfect watch right before the experiment. And, you know, another red flag to me comes up with Kia. There's something about her that is off. I don't know. I feel like Kia is cold. I feel like Kia is calculated as well. And I don't know, y'all. There's something off about her. You just so coincidentally found the perfect watch right before the show. I mean, it could happen, but it just seems a little too coincidence. Is that the word? It's a coincidence. I think that's the word. I don't know. She's very, very calculated. Anyway, so then he tells her, he's like, oh yeah, you're a conqueror. You've you've overcome so many things. And again, she repeats the same like watch saying, she goes, timing is perfect. And then she makes another dig at Tyler and she goes and she says, people out there throwing like, oh, I have strong connections this and I have strong connections that. And see, you have to watch what you say around people. And I really wish Tyler would learn that. Like, stop saying things around all these women. You have you have an inkling of who his connection is, but you don't know who her friends is around the quarters. So you may not see Kia, but you talking about your situation to other women, and now other women can go back and tell Kia. And then what is happening? Kia's throwing it out in a date with Kevan. So then after their date, we get a date with Kevan and Tyler. Kevin's energy is just a little bit off because I think now he's like really conflicted because remember, he was all in on Tyler and he was going to break up with Kia, but now he's feeling conflicted. He wants to get to know Kia a little bit more because he told Kia, like, even though I have this strong other connection, I still want to get to know you. So he kind of like brings this conflicting energy, and I think Tyler kind of knows it. So she's like telling him, she's just like, what are your feelings? Express your feelings to me. And he's telling her, like, we have this strong connection, but then he also goes in and he really bigs up Kia. And right then and there, you can see the defeat and a shutdown of Tyler. He brings up again the whole job situation, which I just don't understand. Why do you have to keep bringing that up? It's just really unnecessary to bring up. But then Tyler says to him, she's like, well, it sounds like you've made a decision or you're moving more towards that decision. And I want a man who is 100% about me. And she's like, pretty much after that, she was like, and I'm going to choose me. But mind you, Kevan is not thinking that she's breaking up because all he's doing is expressing his feelings. But then he hears once she says, like, I'm choosing me, he goes in and he tries to reassure Tyler. He's like, Tyler, you're amazing, blah, 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 this, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, she's already up. She's by the door. And she's like, I have to stop you right there. She's like, I don't want to hear another speech about how wonderful I am. She said, I'm leaving. Like, pretty much, I'm leaving. And then she leaves the date. He sits there and he is just dumbfounded. And he's like, I was just expressing how I feel. And that was the end again of their date. And then we cut to the ending of the episode. And that is Amber and Big Daddy meeting. They're both excited to meet one another. I don't know what Amber was doing before the doors opened, but she was trying to give a little bit of an angle. And I'm like, girl, just stand there. It's not that serious. And then the doors open and the episode ends. Y'all let me know what y'all think about episode 2 down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and like if you like this recap. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. That's it for today's tea on Pam Unfiltered. If you love the drama, the gossip, and the real talk, hit that button, like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. I'll see you in the next one.